up, and welcome back to 24 Minutes of A24, the podcast that takes a look at the A24 library 24 minutes at a time. I'm Ethan Simi.
And I'm Ben Lawhorn. This week on the pod, we are walking down the hall faster than a cannonball as we discuss the documentary Oasis Supersonic.
There was no life in that, Ben. There was no verve. You didn't. I was setting you up for lyrics.
I mean, I appreciate it. I'm no Liam, though. There's just no way I was going to be able to pull it off.
I wanted your best Supersonic impression, or Oasis impression. Oasis's breakthrough years documented into a detailed depiction of the infamous brothers from Manchester forming the band in the early 90s, leading up to the legendary performance at Nebworth. This movie came out in 2016, directed by Matt Whitecross. It is 2 hours and 2 minutes long. Before we get into the film, Ben, how are you? What's going on?
I'm doing well. I'm coming off a successful draft that I will have won.
Well, I'm not. I don't know about that.
Yeah, everything's good. Little cross promotion here. Definitely won that draft. So yeah,
are you referencing the Coppola family draft? By
I am
okay,
indeed.
Sure.
It's probably not out when this drops, but coming up. I'm putting it out there. It's like the secret, I'm thinking.
Oh, sure.
Out there.
Yeah. This pod will be out a few days before the Coppola family draft comes out. But listeners of this pod just know Ben did not actually win. He's just trying to get that cross promotion going on here. Well, I'm just coming off of eating some Taco Bell and Baja Blast for dinner.
Ooh.
So I'm in a great state right now. To be honest with you, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm jazzed up on Baja Blast, and I probably have about 75 minutes of potting in me before I just fall asleep behind the mic. So
here's a question: do you have Baja Blast gelato in you, or just the drink?
Oh well, I'm glad that you asked, because I did in fact pay $4.69 for 1.5 ounces of Baja Blast gelato.
Hell yeah!
Because I had to have it. It's okay. It's not the best gelato I've ever had, but it comes in a cool little, gelato. It's like cardboard, right? It's like a normal ice cream container.
Yeah, for sure.
My wife and I finished it the other night, so I don't have any gelato in me tonight. But you know what I did notice this morning on my way to drop my kids off to school? I was like, oh, you've put that on our shelf where we just have a lot of like knickknacks and doohickeys. You wanted to keep that, Molly.
Oh, the Baja Blast.
It's part of our house aesthetic now, which I could not be more happy about.
I mean, nothing wrong with a little Taco Bell decorations as I sit here with my Taco Bell ashtray. So yeah, I'm all on board.
It also sits next to our Taco Bell Cantina large 3-foot alcoholic slushy container that holds some flowers in our home. You would know about this, Ben, because
I was there.
We did go to Vegas together.
Yes, indeed.
You were there.
We did it.
That was a good time. That was a good draft. Speaking of drafts, but we're here to speak about A24. We have some housekeeping to take care of. I feel like some pretty important housekeeping that is worth mentioning before we get into Supersonic, the Oasis documentary. We have 2 official release dates for 2 very big A24 movies. This is big news here. Queer is going to be releasing in limited fashion on November 27th, and The Brutalist will be releasing in limited fashion on December 20th.
Yeah.
First, I want your thoughts, and then I have a thing that I want to come back to, because like we almost guessed this correctly. I just want you to know that.
Well, yeah, I'm excited about that. I have not seen either of these movies, but it feels like it makes sense. Like we're just lining them up with the Thanksgiving and Christmas release dates. I think Queer going for Thanksgiving is great. I'm excited for that to come out, even though it's just going to be limited over that time. It's always unfortunate to be a movie review podcast and not live in LA or New York because limited just means not you, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Same with
I think we should break that down for a second. I think it's worth digressing for a moment, because there's a lot of talk about this where people are like, sick. Like I don't get to see any of these movies that I really want to see again because they will just play in LA and New York. It's not fair, but like, isn't it though? Because like movies go limited. It happens.
Yeah, but it just feels like we don't need to do this anymore. You know what I mean?
You're
like, just
over it.
Put it out there for everyone. Like This goes back how long, they were doing limited release dates, and that made sense back then because that's where all the critics lived, or either LA or New York. But
Sure.
now you've got some people that are in Portland or in Salt Lake, and they also want to see this movie when it comes out, and they want to review it and talk about it. So like,
Mhm.
put it out there, share.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm looking right now on the A24 press site, and I'm looking all the way back to December 11th of 2020. Can you guess what movie went in limited release in December of 2020? Fairly big A24 movie that did in fact win an Oscar. So we have
Did
a
it,
proven strategy from A24 here.
was it Room?
It was Minari.
Minari. Oh, okay. Room. Yeah.
Minari comes out in limited expansion on December 11th, 2020. Then it goes nationwide February 12th, 2021. 3 months later. And then you also get Saint Maud going limited January 29th of 2021 and then going out wide on February 12th, 2021. So I think it's interesting. It's definitely a proven strategy from A24. I mean, they did it last year with Zone of Interest and they won an Oscar. They did it with Minari years ago and they won an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that's the plan here? Is that not what they're just trying to replicate again?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Even with them trying to cut off like the deadline for the Oscars push, it's just what movies are they going to back? Because how many times did we talk about Iron Claw and like why didn't they push for Efron? You know what I mean? And that made the cutoff. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's a proven tactic that I hope will be in their benefit.
I feel like it will. And I am also not living in a market in which is classified limited. So like, if anything, you and I both have the ability to be like, that's not us. Like, what a shame.
Yeah.
It is a shame. I've seen both of these films. I've seen Queer, I've seen The Brutalist. So I'm not too bent out of shape about the fact of these movies going limited. To me, it's very, very clear that they are just awards plays. I would feel like Daniel Craig and Queers is the main goal here. And then The Brutalist, I could only imagine they're going for most categories. And I think that December 20th limited release date definitely states that very, very clearly, and what their plan is with these films. We had kind of thrown out last week that there's nothing happening the 22nd, November 22nd, and we were like, well, that seems like a good opportunity for The Brutalist to go wide. We were close. I mean, we gave it a good run, and we kind of figured it out a little bit. It's just so interesting to me because the only other alternative, and I'm much more concerned about The Brutalist than I am about Queer. I think Queer is going to be naturally divisive. It's Luca's second movie of the year, comes out during Thanksgiving. Like, people will go see Queer. It's going to be fine. The Brutalist, like, if you don't do this limited release strategy, I think the only other option is like, hey, The Brutalist playing nationwide December 20th. Go see this and then go see Baby Girl 5 days later. Also, take your family to see a 3.5 hour American epic.
Yeah.
That makes no fucking sense. And so, like, I guess I'm coming from a place of privilege, but like, people that are out here really getting turned about like, oh, A24 dropped the distribution ball again. Guys, they do it every year. This is their distribution model, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and like I said, it's shown that they can make it work. So why fix it if it ain't broke? I think that's kind of got to be their perspective here. So yeah, it sucks. I would love for it to be coming out right then, wide, but it's just not the case. So maybe beginning of February, I'll finally see Brutalist so we can talk about it.
I was just gonna say we're looking at a mid-February conversation about The Brutalist.
Stay tuned.
There's just no way it goes wider than like the limited markets, or at least like an expansive limited market before February. I would really guess that their investment here, especially with The Brutalist, and Sing Sing is kind of a little nugget in this where like it might get left behind. Like, Sing Sing might, unfortunately, be the scapegoat to allow The Brutalist to go up and down the ballot on
Yeah.
at the Academy Awards. But if you have a December 20th limited release date, I can only imagine they're looking at an 8 to 9 week expansion of The Brutalist, with it peaking 3 weeks before the Academy Awards. They want people to see this movie in the right time slot. They want people talking about this movie going into the Academy Awards. They want Academy members seeing it at the right time. And I think that they can entice Academy members better and say, hey, late February, we've got screenings everywhere you are. We're going to do them in theaters. We're going to do them on 35 millimeter. We're going to do them on 70 millimeter. Come see this movie in a theater, much like they did with The Zone of Interest. And that's how it's going to work for them, which I think is the right play with The Brutalist. Regardless of what people think, that is 100% the way the Brutalist should be released. So,
yeah, I'm with you on that. I think this is got to have the Oscars push.
Yep, it's got to have the Oscars push. It's a big one for A24. Queer November 27th. I'm okay. I'm cool. It'll go wide, first or second week of January, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool by me. Like, whatever. I'm really fascinated to hear what you think about Queer.
I can't wait to see it. I'm very excited.
Just putting it out there. 2 movies that really don't feel A24, in my opinion.
Okay.
So
I like that. That's a review in and of itself.
Yeah, I take that for what it's worth. I think that's interesting. Okay, you want to talk about Oasis, Supersonic?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we pivoted. We were gonna do The Front Room, I believe, this week on the pod, and similar conversation. We both live in markets where it's kind of just not playing. Quite honestly, like it's just not around. It's not quite on VOD yet, so we decided. Well, Oasis is back together. What better time to talk about Oasis and talk about Supersonic? Now, A24 did re-release this in IMAX. 6 weeks ago now? 8 weeks ago
it was
now?
the August release, right? I think.
Yeah. So I think it was a little bit ago. And I think it actually occurred before the announcement of Oasis getting back together, which is a little suspicious in my opinion.
That is interesting. I wonder if that was like lined up somehow. That'd be pretty interesting.
Do you think they had like insider info?
That'd be cool. I would love it if like Liam just like gave him the heads up, like, hey, listen, you might want to release our movie and get some buzz out there for us.
Just wanted to put it out there, and then A24 is like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I don't know what to tell you. Fuck off."
That's all I can say.
Like that's all it's gonna be. Okay, we're gonna talk about the movie. I want general thoughts. I want to talk about our relationship to Oasis. I've already spoken about the IMAX. So maybe as like a little amuse-bouche into our big conversation here, do you think that this film, Oasis Supersonic, the 2 hour and 2 minute documentary, was worthy of an IMAX release?
I think the fan base is a lot bigger than I realize. So I'd be curious to know what the numbers are. I don't think obviously it would have done like Midsommar or Hereditary numbers or anything like that, but I think it's an interesting choice that they chose to put this out in IMAX.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I respect the move, even though it doesn't seem to be what you would expect. It's like, cool, man. Like let's open up the entire A24 library to this IMAX re-release thing. It feels like nothing's off the table now, knowing they would put out Oasis, Supersonic. So in that sense, I think it's cool. I don't know. This would have been an interesting way to watch it for the first time.
Yeah, I guess very plainly, I don't think it was worth an IMAX re-release. Mm-hmm. Like I don't get it. But also like that leads into our conversation about our connection to Oasis and like them as a band. If you go on Box Office Mojo and you click on the 2024 re-release, it only states an international gross from the United Kingdom of $13,925. That's obviously not true because it played all across America. So I would assume it didn't do great like re-release numbers.
Yeah.
But again, like how am I to know, like compared against Ex Machina or Hereditary or Uncut Gems? Like I have no clue how they're, tracking any of this. Box Office Mojo is obviously not up to date and accurate on that. I think it's a really interesting thing to put into IMAX.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I could see the general line of thinking behind it of like, you get to experience some of Oasis's music in IMAX. That's cool, right? Like that's the selling point.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it's like there is concert footage there, and maybe they thought it would come off the heels of Stop Making Sense, or it's like a
Mm.
concert in IMAX that really played well. So let's put Oasis in there. Maybe the person that's just curating these movies is just a huge Oasis fan. Cause like if I worked for, A24 and they had like an Incubus movie, I'd be like, you guys, we should
We
do it
should throw that
August.
in
We
prime
should throw
time
that
summer
in
slot.
IMAX, like for sure, and just do it just for me. Like this is just for me. So maybe there's someone there that's like a huge Oasis head. I have no
Yeah.
idea. So yeah, I don't know that it was like the most like financially successful movie that they've put out there. But again, like I like the move in the sense that like I have no idea what's next. Like
Oh, sure.
I genuinely don't know what they're going to put out next.
Sure. Well, look, if I was in that position, I would be like, cool, let's just watch After Sun every month in IMAX.
Yeah, exactly.
Because why not? I think that would be fantastic on IMAX.
I want to cry in IMAX. So let's
I want
put
to
it out
cry in
there.
IMAX, please. So where are you at on Oasis? Like as a band, what's your personal connection to them? What do they mean to you?
I mean, there was a lot of surface level stuff, really, honestly, until my partner now kind of exposed me to What's the Story, Morning Glory, like
Yep.
the album that they did, and realizing just how it is like wall to wall, just bangers. Like it's all great songs. It's like, oh shit, that's crazy that like this happens sometimes where bands they just have it. You know what I mean? Just like for one album, it's like everything we put out on this album is going to be great, and we're never going to be able to repeat this ever again.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. And it's like it's such a good album. For the most part, my relationship with Oasis is just like anyways, here's Wonderwall joke, you know what I mean? Like that's just kind of what it is. But I really enjoy Oasis, everything that I've listened to. But like I said, I've been more exposed to it in the last like few years than I ever had before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a similar vein to you, but even less so. Like I'm very surface on Oasis. Like
Mhm.
Oasis, it got announced that Oasis is getting back together, and the whole world went into a unified heart attack.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? Like what's going on, guys? Like fill me in. So that's kind of where I'm coming into Supersonic a little bit. Obviously I've heard Wonderwall, I've heard Champagne Supernova, like
Yeah.
I've heard the big ones. And I've listened to some of their other music, but very sparsely. And I have not like sought them out. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know anything about Liam or Noel or anything about the band's history before I watched this film. And so I was really going into it as like, cool, this is my my Bible in terms of Oasis. Like this is going to tell me what I need to know about the band in order to make sense of like why it's a big deal they're touring in 2025. So in part, I do think the movie did a good job establishing like why I should care about the band for sure. It obviously gets into the relationships, and we'll talk about it. I will say, as a whole, I was a little disappointed in the film. But you were accurate last week. It is better than Jerry Lee Lewis' Trouble in Mind. So
that's a real low bar. I don't know. That's not even a compliment. Like that's just a statement of fact. That's a bummer.
Okay, it's not on that level, but
Okay.
I just wanted to give you credit.
I appreciate it.
So because we are not like Oasis heads and we're not like really big into this, does the reunion like mean anything to you? Is it a big deal that they're touring in 2025?
I mean, it's a big deal in the sense that like I was aware of the relationship and the fallout, that it's like two brothers that have like hated each other for 25 years now, like don't talk to each other or talk about each other, whatever, So for them to also be like, we're coming back, it's just like, oh shit. Okay. They mended fences somehow, maybe just for money. That's fine. You know what I mean? So that was really just kind of surprising. I think that's why, like you said, like collectively everyone had a heart attack when they heard this, like, oh wow, okay. And I think the running gag is actually whether or not they actually will still be together in a year, like
Right.
they're not even playing together yet. But it's just like you can buy tickets now, but it doesn't mean the concert's actually happening, because we'll see what happens. But I think today they're their tour dates for like they're doing a worldwide tour now, just officially is out there. So we'll see how far into it they make it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, because like money didn't keep them together back then, so there's no reason it would now. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens. But yeah, I was aware of their history and why this reunion was such a big deal.
Okay. I wasn't aware at all. So like this was because everything that I consumed on social media for like 48 hours was like, guys, Oasis getting back together, like new reason to live unlocked. And I was like, sick, good. I'm happy for you. Band's getting back together. I don't know what that means. And listeners of this pod might be like, what the fuck? Like, how do you not know? I'm not as plugged into music as you are, definitely, Ben. Like, you're a musician, so you have a much more storied history with music. I'm just a Spotify consumer of music. So you're right. As of today that we are recording, they do have their international dates. I just want to throw out where they're playing: Toronto, Canada; Chicago, U.S.; East Rutherford, New Jersey; Boston; Los Angeles; Mexico City; Seoul, South Korea; Tokyo; Melbourne; Sydney; Sao Paulo, Brazil; Santiago, Chile; and Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Hell yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, 4 U.S. cities. Are you going to try to go?
I want to go see them in Seoul, man. You know what I mean?
That'd be
like, I don't
sick.
even
Okay,
care about
yeah.
the U.S. Like, I want to go see them in a foreign country. I think that would be amazing. I would
That'd
love
be tight.
it. Yeah.
So that would be your pick out of this list. You would choose to go see them in Seoul.
Yeah, 100%. That'd be my choice.
Yeah, that's too bad because that was my choice too. So we'll have to go together now.
All right,
That's
sounds
tough.
good.
I've been trying to get to that part of the world for a very long time.
Yeah.
So that would be pretty sick. I mean, I'd also love to see them in Tokyo. Like, I think that would be
Tokyo would be cool.
really neat. We could just do the double. We could see Seoul and then hop
Just
on over to
travel
Tokyo.
with them. Yeah.
Yeah, travel with them. Yeah. So will they be together in 2025 long enough? I guess we'll find out. This documentary leads me to believe no. Based on what I have seen of their history, based on how their dynamic works, that's a tough bet to take for
100%.
sure. But I wish the best to everybody that obtained tickets and is going to see them, wherever that might be. What did you think of the film as a whole, the documentary?
I really enjoyed it. To me, it was like the opposite of the Jerry Lee Lewis doc, where it was a good use of archival footage and montages without any like brand new talking heads or anything like that. Like, I thought they did a really good job telling the story. Sorry, and not doing it all like linearly either. Like, kind of going back and forth about getting together, and I don't know. I think it was effective to me. I watched it again today, just to like in prep for the pod. I was like, yeah, this is a well-made documentary, because documentary filmmaking is super hard, because you just have hours and miles of like content to deal with and to navigate and put together. There isn't necessarily like a narrative that you're filming for the first time. So you can only create something with what already exists. And I think that they did a really good job telling the story with this. And it was right on the cusp of the time of like when people had video, like whatever video cassette, like recorders, or I don't know exactly, like they were able to just record shit all the time. Whereas like back in the day when you have home footage, it's like, oh, these people were rich because they had a camera, but this was like early 90s. They were more accessible. And so we got to see a lot of really cool footage of like when they were starting out. And I think that just made all the difference.
I do love all the footage. I think it's some really cool footage. I think that you're totally right. Like, working with what they have, I think it's pretty impressive that this movie comes out in 2016. Obviously chronicles, the lead up to a show 20 years earlier based on the footage that they have. So, like, kudos to the filmmaker and everybody that worked on the movie for that. It's pretty impressive. But like, I thought it was like fine. I thought it was just okay. And here's what I find really funny. So I'm on Letterboxd right now. It's got a 3.8 on Letterboxd, pretty solid, pretty good score. Looking through the people that have seen it, I'll give a shout out to Clara. She's they're the host of House of Cinema pod. They're great. Love Clara. 2 stars. well made and interesting-ish, but not for me. Would probably be better if I was a bigger fan of Oasis. So it's like that's actually like really how I feel.
Yeah.
And then another friend of mine, Seth's film reviews.
Yeah.
We've had him on the Movie Draft podcast before. His latest review hasn't really sunk in just yet. In 11 months, I'll be seeing fucking Oasis live. What? Here are my top 10 songs. So I really think in order for this doc to work, you have to love Oasis, or at least have a great appreciation or enjoyment of Oasis. I'm just not there. So I think it's a totally serviceable documentary. I think it's interesting. I think I know a lot more about Oasis. I know a lot more about Liam and Noel Gallagher, and like what I feel like it's a very toxic relationship. Like they hate each other, and then they just come back to each other, and then they part ways again. And it drives me insane. And so like part of me is like, I don't get it. Like their music's really good. Yes, I see that. But I didn't grow up in the time where it was like defining my world. I didn't grow up with What's the Story, Morning Glory. So I'm missing that element to it. But the culture's fascination with Oasis to me is very similar to like Noel and Liam's relationship with each other, where it's like the music is so good, but also there's so much behind the scenes drama that I want more of it. I just want more and more and more. And I think people are really drawn to that. So I think that's a large portion of why this doc works for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that totally tracks. I also can't deny that the video editor in me comes out seeing all this put together, where I was like, God damn, this was so much stuff to like cull through and like put together. That's like, it's so impressive. So maybe this is like a 3.5 star movie, but I'm going to give you an extra half star because that was a lot of shit you guys put together. That was great. So,
sure.
But yeah, for me, this is a 4-star, really well made documentary. And I think it is because we have like the thing that I think this is what was so frustrating about Jerry Lee Lewis is like, arguably Jerry Lee Lewis is a more interesting person than Liam and Noel Gallagher.
Yeah.
But the documentary is so much more boring.
Yeah.
Liam
100%.
and Noel are very interesting people. Not to say that, like, they're super interesting, but they were able to capture it for the documentary, which was great. And I think that's like, I don't mean to keep talking about Jerry Lee Lewis, but like, that's what was so fucking frustrating. It's like this man married like his cousin when she was like 13 or something. Like there's like so many interesting things to know, and we just don't talk about it. Whereas here it's like, cool, we get to learn that like why the brothers don't like each other. But we also get these moments in the documentary where they compliment each other, where Noel's like, yeah, Liam, I wish I looked as cool as he did in a parka or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like, he's cool. And like, and Liam can give Noel credit, just like, yeah, he's just like one of the greatest songwriters that we had. And that's fantastic. And he's a singer now, and that's great. But at the same time, they can just call each other cunts and move on. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's all there. And I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think it's just like interesting to say the least. And you know, it did help me understand Oasis much more. I think before we get into true cinema, I had two things I wanted to say. One, based on what you just said about Jerry Lee Lewis, Trouble in Mind, like this documentary at least is incredibly interesting in its storytelling, in its like visual style. Like it brings forth some really cool animation to some really great montages. It brings a whole package to say, okay, look, we know we're a 2-hour documentary, but we're gonna buy that because we are gonna give you cool things. And like it actually does that. I still feel like it's a little long, but it's more bearable because it does have some really, really fascinating things at it. And the voiceovers, like it is so much material. So you're constantly getting fed information and learning about the relationship the entire time, which I think is beneficial. The other big criticism. So from my perspective, a guy who doesn't really know anything, we end at Nebworth, their show at Nebworth. There are 3 nights that they do in front of 250,000 fans. And it's kind of the same place that the movie starts. And we end there. And then I don't know, the heathen that I am, I don't know like why they broke, like what was the straw that broke the camel's back, or like how that process happened. Like how was that? How did that go down in the publications? What was the reaction to all of that? Like how did that impact the world when Oasis broke up? The documentary does not go into that. And I felt really disappointed because like I understand what it's trying to achieve by saying like, we should have gone out on top. And like Nebworth was like, we touched the sky. And I get that. But also like the band broke up. So like, give me the full story. Tell me why. Tell me why. Tell me how. Tell me what the reaction was to that. That was I was like severely disappointed.
It's like ending the story of Icarus before the wings get melted off. It's like, all right, cool. So the guy goes to the sun, and then what? That's just the end of the story, you know? It's like, yeah, what happened? I think that totally makes sense. I'm curious why, if it's just a situation where they just assume people know, you know, like, oh, well, people just know that they don't get along anymore, and that's it, whatever. Or if the brothers are just like, we'll talk about everything up to Nebworth, but we're not going to like go into why we actually broke up. Okay. Like maybe they didn't want to talk about it. I have no idea. But yeah, it does, you know, it also makes me think about like Bohemian Rhapsody, where they end just like at Live Aid, and it's like, and then that's it. It's like, well, no, stuff happened, you know what I mean? Like, but we're just like, we're done, I guess now. So, I don't know. I'd be curious to know why they didn't tell that. I think there's a few possibilities, but I could see that as someone who's coming to it from a place of like not really knowing the backstory or anything like that of the band. It's just like, all right, great. So you guys were bigger than the Beatles for a while there, and then the movie ends. It's like, all right, why? Sick. What happened? You know, we're not getting a second movie, I guess. Like, I don't know.
I mean, we'll get a second movie at some point in time.
At some point,
we will see a reunion movie. I wouldn't doubt that. There's just no way that doesn't get turned into a film. I don't know. I was a little disappointed. I was like, yeah, we did it, and then it all disappeared. Okay. Should we do True Cinema? Should we talk about Supersonic a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll start, like I said, it essentially like starts at Nebworth and is like, record scratch. I'm sure you're wondering how we got here, and then like we go backwards. So I just have a bunch of bullet points of things that happened during the film. First one on here is their first gig in August of 1991. The thing that I found the most fascinating to me about this documentary and about Oasis in general is their rise to fame basically takes place over 3 years.
Yeah.
And they basically go from nothing to playing at Nebworth in 5 years, I guess. Excuse me.
Yeah.
5 years. One of the biggest shows ever, just like on the face of the planet. One of the most important bands ever. And that is just interesting to me. Like how that such expeditious rise to fame altered everything about their lives, I think is really fascinating.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's like in 1990, they don't exist. And then by 1997, they still don't exist. Like they're gone now. You know, it's just like we had this little tiny window of where Oasis was around. And yeah, it's super interesting. And like they talk about, I know it's like the next point on here, but it's like we had a great show in 1991, and then like nothing happened for 2 years. We just hung out. It's like, yeah, I guess that's kind of how it happens. Like and they talk about it in here, but it's like you have to catch a break sometime. And luckily, like they were able to catch the break and the right person saw them. But yeah, as great as your shows are and as much word of mouth as you get, there's still, you know, that there's luck that's involved in everyone's success.
Do you believe in fate, Ben?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know. That's a lot deeper than I'm ready for. I haven't had enough to drink tonight to get into that.
Yeah, that's not a Thursday at 10:22 kind of a question.
Yeah, it's a school night.
It is a school night. I asked because the band, obviously, you mentioned 2 years of nothing, 18 months to 2 years of just nothing, of just hanging out, playing some local gigs, like whenever they could, of just being a lowly band. And then in Glasgow in 1993, they're playing a show. They catch a lucky break. They basically get brought there to tail with another band, and basically get lucky and get some set time. And this guy, Alan McGee, ends up being there. He's from Creation Records, and he hears them and is like, I need to sign this band.
Yeah.
And, you know, it in the voiceovers, Noel and Liam are like, that's fate. Like he was supposed to be there that night. That is destiny. Yeah, maybe it's just a lucky break. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, everything. I don't know that everything happens for a reason. I just think everything happens, it's just kind of like how it goes. So, yeah, maybe someone else would have seen them at another show and they still would have
Mm,
become Oasis. Like, that's hard to say, but yeah, yeah, it's easy to look back on stuff and be like, oh, it wouldn't have happened if this, it's like, yeah, that's true.
yeah.
But there's also probably a lot of really good bands that no one saw them play
Hmm.
and they could have been Oasis and they just weren't. So I don't know. Everything happens.
Sounds like a fate thing to me.
I guess so.
That sounds like we believe in fate. So they basically start to become Oasis. They kind of blow up overnight.
Mhm.
They put in their time, and all the behind the scenes that nobody sees, and then they get signed one night, which is that idea is crazy to me. That like
Yeah.
this one guy literally determined the fate of one of the biggest bands that's ever played. He could have very, very easily that night been like, let me sleep on it. Let me talk to let me talk to the record deal company.
Yeah.
Like let me talk to some other people. Let me get some second opinions. But he was like, nah, I gotta fucking sign these guys right now. Which is crazy.
Well,
The
how
next
lucky too. Sorry to interrupt, but it's just like I think you and I have had experiences where you just go to a movie, but you've had a shitty day,
Yeah.
and it kind of influences like your opinion. You're like, I don't know, man. Just like I
Mhm.
wasn't into it. It's like it's a good thing this guy had a good day that day, more than likely,
100%.
Because if he was like in a shitty mood, it's like I don't want to fucking listen to these guys play, But instead, he signed Oasis, and like one of the greatest moves on all their parts.
Yeah. No, it's a really great point. I know you're speaking from personal experience. You have some pretty
Yes.
pretty bad theatrical experiences. Speaking of theatrical experiences, I did just buy a ticket to see Megalopolis again, which I'm very excited about, by the way.
5 stars.
5-star masterpiece. I got the last IMAX experience show, which entails the live performer. So
Mm.
before that goes away, at least in my cinema, I got the last showing. Currently, it's me and 6 other people in an entire IMAX theater. So it's going to be very strange when a person walks out and it's speaking to Adam Driver and there's 6 of us or 7 of us there. It's going to be weird.
It's exciting.
Yeah, can't wait. Going to be really great stuff. Okay, next on the bullet point, the fight on the ferry. They start to get big. Their whole mantra is just like they're punk, like fuck it all.
Mhm.
Nothing matters. They can do whatever they want. They're just full of Irish anger and really that kind of drives like who they are and I do think to a large extent why people are fascinated with them and why they're interested in them and the energy that they get from them. They get on this ferry. They have a massive fight on the ferry. They all get arrested. They call their record manager and share the news. And I guess his response was like, awesome. That's what we want from our rock stars.
Yeah.
Sounds like a sick guy, in my opinion. Cool dude.
Yeah, it's amazing because I do feel like there's a line towards the end of the movie where I think Liam says, like, it just happened that we were like musicians, but we could have been fishermen and we still would have like acted this way. Like, we could have
Right.
still like hated each other. And it's like, yeah, I really don't think success changed these people at all. I think they
No.
just like continue to be themselves. It's just like, yeah, we're just hooligans who wants to get in fights on a ferry. Like, I don't care that I have a show tomorrow night. Like, I want to fight right now, so we're gonna
Yeah.
fight. I kind of respect that. They just like they didn't change who they were.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't change who they were. I think fame changed everything around them.
For
And I
sure,
don't
for sure.
know if that like vibed with who they were.
Yeah.
There's a very famous moment, at least in my opinion, in this documentary that is kind of a big delineation of understanding Noel and Liam and like their
Mhm.
relationship. Noel's the cat, Liam's the dog. I thought for
Mhm.
me, at least, like coming into it, not knowing anything, I was like, okay, that's a very easy to understand, great analogy of
Yeah.
how they intermingle and how they do get along, and like when they look at each other, the music is all that exists, but
Mhm.
also they just can't stand like the shenanigans that each of
Yeah.
them do. I love this part because this is kind of more of the part of the documentary where we're getting a lot of like deeper voiceover. We're getting a lot of like kind of deeper cuts of them just like hanging out, dicking around, talking, rambling, doing drugs, like just being them. And I thought it
Mhm.
was interesting.
Yeah, there's somewhere in the mix of all this too, a line gets said that like they act this way not because they hate each other, but because they love each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. He was like that's why it's so deep and affecting and stuff like that. Because like they actually do have love for each other, but it just comes across in this like bickering and all that kind of stuff. And that's just kind of what makes them who they are. But yeah, the cat and dog analogy is totally perfect.
Then they go on to record their first album. So basically, they've only been a live band up until this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
People have like obviously their fame, their popularity is growing. They get to mix their first album, and I thought it was kind of funny to like learn about this story of basically they get in the studio and they start to mix it, and everybody's like, "This is no good." Like they just don't sound like Oasis.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. And then they try to pull in the guy who mixes at their shows, and everybody's like, this is the guy. He will make them sound like Oasis. And then he goes in there and he's like, I've done everything I can. It's not going to work. I thought it was crazy.
Yeah, like it just can't happen. Yes, I mean, it still turned out to be a solid album. But yeah, it's interesting, I guess, when you make your reputation on all of your live shows and then you have to go in and like record it. And that's just, it's a whole different experience.
Yeah. Kind of the opposite of us, right? We're in the booth all the time.
We're just
live experience.
Nope. Yeah, we're recording nonstop.
Live show, probably a bomb. Probably not going to work. We're gonna need a new mix, new producer. All in shambles. Yeah, I just thought that was an interesting story. I was like, oh, cool. Like this is definitely another layer to the music industry and how we receive music like on our end instead of like listening to things live. Okay, next bullet point I have, doing meth in America. Just crazy shit from Oasis here.
And right before their show at Whiskey Go Go, which is like their big American debut, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And they had just essentially been up for 3 days. They go to perform and then like still doing meth on stage there, like not realizing what it was. I still can't tell if they like initially didn't know, but they're like, oh, okay, well, this is fine. Like they found out, or if they just kept doing it regardless of whether or not they knew. But yeah, that footage is kind of hard to watch because it's like, you know, one of the set lists being different than the other set lists, and just like it's rough. It's a rough show for sure.
Yeah, it's bad. And this I do think that this is where the format of the documentary really, really works, is where like we just spend 8 minutes like watching them implode at Whiskey Go Go, and like it's hard to watch for sure. It's kind of crazy. I can't imagine either being there and being in the audience or being part of the band and just being like, well, this was great while it lasted. Like we're never conquering America. It's just not going to work. They say that they thought it was coke. Ends up being meth, and they just keep doing it. All of it. They do a lot of meth, basically. And then is this where Liam kind of runs away and goes to San Francisco?
Noel, yeah. Noel, this is where Noel leaves and goes to San Francisco.
Yeah. So they got a little manhunt going on for Noel here. Really interesting dichotomy with Oasis and America. I don't know, like at least at that period of time, like they just did not mesh with each other. And I don't think Oasis understood America. I don't think, obviously, America didn't understand Oasis at the time either.
For sure. And I think this section here reiterates what we talked about earlier of them believing in fate, because Noel goes to San Francisco, then writes like, I forget what song it was, but one of their popular
Talk to You
hits.
Tonight, I believe.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And he's like, and that just wouldn't have happened if I hadn't left. So like it needed to happen. Yeah. And that was it. And same as like earlier, we learned about this rival school, and one of the kids hit Liam in the head with a hammer. And then he's like, then after that, I understood music. So thanks to that guy for hitting me with a hammer. It's like, what the fuck, man? You guys really turning a positive spin on all this shit. It's kind of wild.
That is the most insane thing to me, where it's just like, that's so movie coded, where it's like, and then I saw heaven. Like, and then I understood. To you?
Like if you were like, instead of seeing La La Land, you got hit in the head with a hammer, and you're just like, oh, movies, cool, great. I love movies. I get it now. You know, like that's just so wild to think about.
That would be the funniest thing in the world to me. That's hilarious. That's, you know, pro bowling, I guess. Like shout out to that kid doing his thing. So in shambles at Whiskey Go Go, things go left. Noel goes to San Francisco. They got a little manhunt going on. all of these things start to really unravel and then like come back and then unravel and then come back. And like, it just is this monotonous toxic cycle with Oasis. I've just a few more bullet points we'll go through to talk about the rest of this movie. They get in a huge fight in the studio later on in their career. And this is where Queegs leaves. Queegs, he leaves. And this is kind of the first domino in what I feel like is like, then some other people leave, and then Noel and Liam are just kind of like, fuck this. Like, I don't know if this is going to work. They just start to kind of really go down this rabbit hole. And when Queegs leaves, we get these voiceovers from Noel and Liam that are just like, fuck that guy. Like, he's only been a part of our band forever. And also he's our only bass player or drummer. And like, whatever. We'll just keep going on, which to me is like an absolutely astounding frame of mind.
Yeah, it's wild. They're just like, yeah, fuck that guy. We'll just keep going. But then, I mean, later we're like, they invite him back for Nebworth, right? And then like, they end up just giving him shit like, hey, did you have a nice break? You know, like they're just like, they still have to like take the piss out of him. They're just like, all right, whatever.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
That's crazy. That's terrible. Yeah. So I mean, you know, they're in fights left and right. I feel like after this, it's just pretty apparent that like that is coded into who the band is. The next one I have on here is the News of the World phone call. This is really interesting. So this is they have some really big shows. They're very successful, and then their dad shows up at one of these after parties, one of these shows, and basically starts talking to a journalist, kind of just trying to get his payday and just trying to get his moment in the sun. And Noel and Liam kind of hold each other back and say, like, we're not going to interact with him. We're not going to do anything. He comes out to the tabloids and basically says, like, my sons won't talk to me no matter how hard I try. And then somehow this publication, News of the World, obtains apparently a phone call between, I think it was between Noel and his dad. With Noel explaining like,
or Liam and his dad, I believe.
Liam, okay,
yeah.
With Liam explaining like, if you come to the next show, I will break your legs. People would call this toll-free number, and it would cost them 39 cents to call it, or 39 quid or pounds or silver dollars. I don't know. And this is what I really think. This is what like drove the fascination with Oasis. Is like they were so like pop. Like just steeped in drama. You could not escape it anywhere you went.
And this is all like pre TMZ and shit, you know, like they, they were creating the kind of the circus around them, so to speak. And just like goes back to the fight on the ferry. It's like, cool, this is what we want. Like there's no bad news. You know what I mean? It's like getting yourself out there is what we need. And that's exactly what they did and why they were part of the reason they were so popular.
And this is also at the time, you're going to have to remind, I'm pretty sure it was Noel that like he gets interviewed and he's like, drugs are dope. Like everybody does drugs. Yeah. They're super cool.
Yeah.
And he just gets absolutely flamed for this take in all the tabloids and all the journalistic prints. And he's like, he gives another interview where he's like, I don't know. I just answered a question. I gave my opinion. Like, what the fuck do you want? And I was like, shout out to my guy, Noel. Like 100%. This guy is in the right. Like he's getting flamed for this take. He just told people that he likes to do drugs. Who fucking cares?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's like looking at the camera. He was like, you do drugs. You've done drugs. You've done drugs. You've done drugs. He's like, everyone does it. It's like having breakfast. I think that's kind of
it's
how
like
you're
having a cup of tea.
Having a cup of tea.
And so he just everywhere. It's like drugs equals cup of tea.
Yeah. And they just like go wild. But it's like, yeah, everyone has done some sort of drugs. Like that didn't tell any lies. And I just like, that's his response when he gets called out on. He's like, you know, show me the lie. Like, what the fuck? I just gave you my opinion. That's all there is to it. Why you guys make a big deal?
Yeah. I mean, you got to give him credit for like sticking to his guns. For like,
yeah, for sure.
You know, you said it. They never changed. They never changed who they were. Yeah. They were just like that. Last bullet point I have on here: Nebworth, 250,000 fans in 1996. They sell out their first night in a matter of mere minutes. They have 2.6 million people like sign up for a chance to have a ticket, which sounds very similar to how things transpired a couple of months ago with their reunion announcement. Then they they get booked for 2 more nights, and then we get these voiceovers that are like, we should still be playing at Nebworth. Like, we could play every single night for the last 20 years, and we would still sell out every single night, which, like, maybe they're not wrong. I don't know.
It's hard to say, but I mean, I guess for the what did they say? Like 4% of the population tried to get tickets.
Yeah.
Like 4% of the country wanted to get tickets. They realized that they could have, with that, at least sold out a week's worth of shows. But obviously, like, they probably could have sold out more. So it's just, it's almost hard to understand how many people that is and how huge that is. Because, like, they do talk shit. Like, one of my favorite lines at the beginning, Noel was talking about, like, if I don't have Phil Collins' head in a freezer by the end of this, then I'll have been a failure. Like, that's how big they want it to be. That's like, they really did get to a point where, like, in a sense, you could say they were bigger than the Beatles, like, in a sense, you know, and I think that's just so interesting. It's hard, I think, to fathom.
Yeah. The documentary does do a good job of going over all of these, I think, pretty, like, minute details, like, really interpersonal details and relationships. It feels really sporadic to me at certain moments. Like, we're getting, like, so many voiceovers all the time from so many different people.
Oh yeah.
And it's both a pro and a con of the documentary. It took me out of it, I think, more times than it worked. And like I said, like, my biggest qualm with this is, like, we stopped short. I feel like we were on the 5-yard line and we just needed to get across for the touchdown. And it just, like, didn't get us there. But, you know, like, mission accomplished. Very, very serviceable documentary, in my opinion. Like, I haven't rated it on Letterboxd at time of recording, which is, like, exceptionally rare.
Yeah.
But you know, probably 3 stars. Like, I don't know. It was good. It was fine.
Cool.
That's kind of where I'm at. Was there any other true cinema moments? Anything that I, like, gloss over? There's so much content in this movie. We didn't even come close to, like, talking about all the moments.
Yeah, there's
obviously.
a ton. My true cinema moment is actually what I wrote for my review this time watching it. And it's similar to the Noel's a cat, Liam's a dog thing, but I think it's their tour manager while they were over in Japan. And she said something to the effect of, Noel has a lot of buttons, Liam has a lot of fingers. You know, like, he just knows how to push him. And that's like, oh yeah, that's, like, again, like, another great analogy for what this relationship is, where it's like Liam just knows how to bug Noel just the perfect amount. Enough to push him over. So for me, that's, like, my true cinema moment. That is, like, the best way to encapsulate their relationship.
It's true. It's totally true. I would say that my true cinema moment is the very first moment. We get, like, a 2-minute montage, maybe. The very first moment that they arrive in Tokyo for the first time. And I believe it's, like, their first time playing outside of Manchester, outside of anywhere like that. They go to Tokyo and they're interviewed and all this stuff, and they're like, everybody here is mad. Like, why the fuck do they like us? No idea. No clue why they're singing our music, because they don't speak English. But, like, I'm here for it. And I was like, kind of sick as hell, honestly. It's so cool how much they loved it.
Yeah, he's like, you guys are mad. I don't know why you guys are singing our stuff, but I love you. Thank you. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's just,
I feel like I would feel the same way. I'd be like, all right, this is, I don't understand any of this, but this is sick.
If we showed up somewhere and, like, we were just, like, mobbed by fans, I'd be like, I have no idea why you guys feel this way, but thank you. I appreciate it, you know, but that's crazy to me. Yeah.
You know, look, if I don't have Sean Fantasy's head in a cooler by the end of the decade, then I failed as a podcaster. That's where we're at. Okay. Let's do A1X. We've both done our true cinema moment here. We'll do A1X. So obviously, naturally, I chose band documentaries. I feel like that's
perfect.
Fair.
Yeah.
I feel like that's fair for this. So we'll see. I have a couple on here that I'm curious if they're constituted as documentaries, but we can talk through it. We can run through this together. So obviously, we've got Oasis Supersonic, Don't Look Back, the Bob Dylan documentary. Got The Last Waltz, famously from Martin Scorsese, that documents the band. Give Me Shelter, which is the Rolling Stones documentary. Now, I went to rollingstone.com for this, a list of the 70 greatest music documentaries, and I kind of just pulled 1 through 10.
Cool.
Couple misses and additions here and there. Stop Making Sense was on this list. It is number 4 on this list. Would you qualify that as a band documentary?
I wouldn't, and I say that as someone who's wearing his Stop Making Sense shirt right now.
And that is why I asked. I noticed you brought the goods.
I love it so much, but to me, it's a concert. Like there's
100%.
no real behind the scenes aspect of it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I put a question mark here on the
Yeah.
doc, and I agree with you. Amazing Grace follows Aretha
Mhm.
Franklin. We've got Cobain, Montage of Heck, obviously following Kurt Cobain. Monterey Pop, which is kind of a mashup of all of these bands that played at this Monterey Fair. The Who, Jefferson Airplane, Janis Joplin, bunch of very famous bands.
Mhm.
Homecoming, obviously Queen Bee herself, Beyonce.
Yeah.
And then I put Summer of Soul on here, which follows a music festival set in Harlem in the summer of 1969. I believe this movie was directed by Questlove back in 2021. It was a big Academy Awards kind of conversation piece. I heard it's great. I haven't seen it, but I'm very intrigued. So these are what I put on there. I haven't seen a lot of these. I don't really seek out band documentaries. I got to be honest with you. Not really interested.
I mean, once you've experienced Jerry Lee Lewis, what else do you need? You know, like you kind of be done after
That's
that.
it.
So
I've seen the whole genre.
yeah, I don't blame you. I've seen a majority of these. I haven't seen Montage
Really?
of Heck, and I haven't seen Amazing Grace. And I think these are really good. I'm gonna go myself. I'm gonna go with Homecoming.
I knew it. I knew you were going that direction.
Yeah, I think
You're
it's
big
like,
on Beyonce, right?
yeah, I love Beyonce, and I think this is like a really good use of documentary where we see how the whole concert is put together. We get a lot of voiceover from Beyonce talking about like what the songs mean, why it's important for her to have like an HBCU there, like playing. And yeah, I don't know. I just think it's really well done, and it was Beyonce at Coachella. You know what I mean? Like it was huge.
Should I watch Homecoming?
I think you should. I think you'd enjoy it.
Where is it? Is it streaming anywhere right now?
I believe it was a Netflix like Netflix movie. So
Oh,
I
man.
think
That
it
makes me
should be on
nervous.
there.
That makes me nervous. I don't know if we can find it anywhere. I mean, I recommend not typing Homecoming into Letterboxd because I'm just finding everything but this film. I gotta be
Yeah, I
honest with you. It's not working out. Shoot, we got
Homecoming, a film by Beyonce on Netflix.
on Netflix, confirmed.
Yeah.
Whew, wow. Okay, well, I hope they never get rid of it. You know?
I mean, they paid for it, so I hope they don't
I hope
either.
I hope they would keep it. Okay, well, I will watch Homecoming. I'm at least interested in that for sure. I'm gonna pick The Last Waltz because it's really the only other one I've seen on here outside of Supersonic. I like The Last Waltz, really good. It's not among Scorsese's best, I would say, but it is fascinating to say the least. I think it's pretty cool, and that actually is a very fascinating intermix between like a Stop Making Sense and a Supersonic. Like you're getting a concert, but you're also getting behind the scenes material. So I think that's pretty fun. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Okay. A24 ranking for Supersonic. What do you got?
I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd.
Okay.
And to me, that's kind of a mix between like an A- and a B+. That's kind of that range depending on what the 4
interesting.
is.
Okay.
But
I've been trying to get this Letterboxd to A24 ranking conversion for a long time.
Yeah, that's kind of where I have 4. I think it's in that range. I'm gonna go with the B+ here.
Okay.
I really do enjoy this, and I do think it's extremely well done. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of bad stuff to say about it, but it's also just like I wasn't floored. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh my God, this was amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like Stop Making Sense or Homecoming to me would be A's for sure.
Okay.
This is a solid B+.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Unfortunately, didn't change the world like Oasis itself. Didn't change Ben's world. Okay. I'm gonna go with a C. Just a straight shot down the middle. C.
Cool.
I think it's totally serviceable. I think it's interesting. It's just not for me. I don't really care, to be honest with you, and that's a personal problem. And you know, that's where I'm at right now. It is what it is.
But you know a lot more about Oasis than you did 24 hours ago.
That's true. Actually, it's true. I know far more information, so I guess that's a huge plus.
So that's good. Yeah. We're learning.
We're learning. I'm just trying to be more of a cultured guy. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just a white cis hetero male that gets behind a microphone, tries to influence the world with my opinions. Probably good that I listen to Oasis.
It's a good thing for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, next week on the pod, we are entering October. Entering spooky season. We got a couple spooky movies we're going to talk about in October. We actually have a couple of new movies we're going to talk about in October as well. But we're kicking off the month with a little film called Slice. This movie stars Chance the Rapper, Zazie Beetz. It's like an 85-minute black comedy slasher. As far as I'm aware, like that's what I understand this movie to be. Not looking great on Letterboxd, but don't let that deter you from either watching Slice or listening to the pod, because we're gonna put in the work, and it's very possible that one of us actually really likes it.
That is quite possible. Where are you at on Chance the Rapper? Are you pro? Are you unexperienced? Like, where are you at?
That's tough. Ask me 6 years ago when Coloring Book came out. Very pro. I think that is some magnificent work on Coloring Book. Where I'm at right now on Chance the Rapper, tough beat. Like, honestly,
I don't even know where Chance is on himself. Like, I have no idea where he's at.
I don't either. I think that's part of the problem. It's honestly very akin to Oasis, where Chance was really good and then like saw dollar bills. And then every record label was like, we can make money if you don't drop mixtapes. And then that happened. And I just think we jumped the shark a little bit on Chance.
Yeah, he put out some great mixtapes. He put out a great album and then just kind of disappeared a little bit, which is kind of wild. So
yeah,
you're right. Very similar to Oasis.
What has he been up to recently? Great question.
I don't know. I think trying to help us all forget that fourth album he put out, whatever that was the clear disc on the cover.
The Big Day.
The Big Day.
Tough send for our boy Chance.
Yeah, for sure.
He did something. Well, I'm trying to figure out what it was. It must have been The Social Experiment. That was his kind of like soul, kind of like church choir.
Oh yeah.
Like, I guess mixtape.
Yeah, they got some great songs.
I listened to that before I knew it was Chance the Rapper, and I was like, man, nice. Whoever this is good stuff. And then I got turned on to acid rap, and I was like, oh wow, this is great.
Yeah.
And like you said, that fourth album just took him out of the running.
It was kind of rough. Yeah, I forgot he was on The Voice.
Oh wow. I think we all forgot. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So we are going to be watching him act in a film. So we'll be having more Chance the Rapper conversations next week
for sure. The pod. We can save it for next week. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. What are your thoughts on Supersonic? Have you wait, what does that say? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
let us know.
I left in notes from Tiff last week to really throw you off the scent. Have you ever been to Supersonic?
Have you ever been to Supersonic? Because like I barely went to Sonic for the first time a few months ago.
Where are you at on Sonic? That's a good question.
I love a tater tot, so yeah.
Wow. Oh, interesting.
I was on board with it. I thought it was good. It was my first time experiencing
recently.
It.
Was your first time?
Yeah, like over the summer was my first time ever going to a Sonic.
That's very interesting. I wouldn't peg Sonic to be the tater tot capital of the fast food chains, but
yeah,
you do you. I love a good slush. That's.
We should do a fast food breakdown on an episode. Just like
we actually should. Yeah,
top 5 fast food places.
Top 5. Sonic not making the top 5. Hate to break it to you.
Yeah, the fact that we both have Taco Bell memorabilia, I think, should tell you everything about that list.
Full circle, baby. We made it back.
We did it. Yeah, let us know what you guys thought about Supersonic. We are on Twitter and Instagram at 24 minutes of A24. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube where you can watch us talk about these projects. We appreciate everyone's support. Thank you so much for leaving comments, sending DMs, all that kind of stuff. We really appreciate it. I am Ben Lawhorn.
And I am Ethan Simi. Spring break forever, bitches.